Hello, and welcome to the latest in a series of podcasts from the Journal-Star editorial board interviewing candidates for the at-large city council election. Today we have with us Branden Martin, one of the 15 candidates for city council. I'm Chris Kaergard, Journal-Star associate editor, with Dennis Anderson, Journal-Star executive editor.
Good morning.
Morning.
Branden, thank you for being here.
No, thanks for having me.
Talk to us first about a little about yourself and what it is that motivates you to run for city council.
Yeah, so my name is Branden Martin, born in Central Illinois. I've been creating my own businesses from the ground up since the age of 12. I currently own or am part owner of 9 distinct businesses here locally. Most of them are based in Peoria. You know, I care greatly about the community, and I think this is the time to make a difference, and I'm ready to step up and get involved. And you know, I think we need help, and I think it needs a fresh face and fresh ideas to the city council, and I'm willing to take the time and make a difference. So.
What have you been doing to prepare yourself for a job like this?
Lots of meetings, lots of sit-downs, coffees, lunches, attending different meetings and organizations, reading over budgets and trying to, you know, there's 2 sides to every story, so I'm really trying to learn how a lot of things work in the community and at city. I'm only preview to certain items at this time, but, you know, I want to see what we can fix and make more efficient and run more smoothly and not try to, you know, cost the taxpayers as much money.
What are you hearing from people?
You know, I mean, people are frustrated. I mean, all they see is more taxes, more fees, and they want to know why nothing's being done about it. You know, it's a tricky question, a tricky answer as well, because it's not just one person's fault. I mean, it's been happening for years, and you know, there's things we have to battle like pensions and that sort of stuff, and how do we combat that? You know, one big thing I like to tell people that a lot of cities are across the country are struggling with this. You know, they've been based on sales tax for so long, and since the .coms and the Amazons and stuff, that's a hard revenue to replace. You know, so you really have to dig deep and think outside the box to figure out a solution for that, and it's really hard for a lot of areas to accomplish that. For example, you know, Joliet is now the hub, and they get a tax based on them, you know, origin tax rather than destination tax, and they're enjoying that perk because they're receiving the funds from it. But it doesn't help us out who we're actually receiving the product. But you can't, you know, I tell people it's really, really hard to go back to 100% brick and mortar because you've opened up the access to the entire world of items and products at a cheaper rate, and it's at your doorstep in 24 to 48 hours. So that's hard to do. So we've got to think outside the box and how we can bring other revenues in without just raising taxes and fees. So
how do you do that? You talk about having and I'm quoting here from your survey, an aggressive business plan to entice new and different businesses to come to Peoria. Unpack that for us.
Yeah, so I think that we have the ability. We have great resources here in Peoria and Central Illinois in general. We've got a very low cost of living compared to other places in the country. We've got access for many modes of transportation, and we've got a lot of resources here as far as businesses are concerned. We've got a good education program, I feel, as far as the collegiate level, and we have to figure out how to retain those people. We have to get those people to want to stay here and live here. Without increasing the rate percentage-wise, we have to get more people to spend more money, and the only way to do that is to get more people to move to the city. So, you know, reaching out in some of these meetings is figuring out what are we missing for key components for new employees for you guys, or what's coming out of Bradley and ICC that other businesses could directly benefit from. For example, the Bradley's got a great program that a lot of people don't talk about, is their gaming development. You know, is anyone reaching out to EA or any of these big, you know, companies that could directly benefit from having this and put satellite offices in here and start to grow a small base? You know, if it's 5 or 10 jobs, that's 5 or 10 jobs we didn't have. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to find a 250-person company that's going to start here next month. But, you know, as we start to reach out, and my my plan is that we build a team of people within the city, whether they work for the city now or local entrepreneurs or business owners that care about the city, and we can start to reach out and find out these programs that are out there that can help other companies and let them know that they can move here.
So city economic development and the Economic Development Council aren't doing these things right now?
If they are, they're doing it at such a small level that there's not much buzz about it, and I don't know if that's just improper marketing or advertising that they're doing that, or they're not. And I've got to get in there to be able to find out exactly what is actually happening, and make it more efficient and make it a bigger product. I mean, if they're not, in my mind as a business owner, if you're not developing that and reaching out, there's a big misunderstanding there. So,
what involvement up to this point have you had with city government, or conversations you've had with other elected people?
Minimal. I mean, just I do a lot of revitalization of homes, so just little permits and stuff like that. Nothing major. We've put together some things in some private groups to reach out. We haven't had very good success with feedback from the city. Is it not the right person? So I'm learning that as I go, is who's the person that makes the decisions, and who can figure that out. And if they don't, we need to make sure that we get the right person in place for that. If we've got somebody that's in a certain position that isn't developing their specific area, we've got to make sure that the person's the right fit for that job.
Is there a challenge there with transparency at the city? And I want to follow that up with asking how familiar you are with their one-stop shop on business development and how effective that is.
I don't personally reach out to it. I've met with other entrepreneurs and startup companies and stuff like that, and they've gotten better, but I think there's room for improvement. When I remember hearing, you'd hear horror stories about you just can't get anything done, nobody's friendly, and it's just a complicated mess, and nobody wants to work with you. And I think they've improved that, but I want to improve that more. I mean, we need to be, what can we do to help you, rather than it just being a bunch of hoops with fire all around them. And not to say that that's the way it exactly is, but we should just be reaching our arms out to, how can we assist you? How can we help with this process? Because that just helps everybody out. They're all struggling with the budget and deficits and pension. This is a very, very easy solution that really wouldn't cost the city much money to do. It just, to me, is common sense, and it's sometimes it gets missed, and need a little more clarification on it.
It's an at-large position. You're responsible for reaching out to all the city residents.
Yes.
How much have you gotten to East Bluff and the South Side and North Side?
I've went and walked the neighborhoods with some of the local members that have reached out, or I've tried to make myself available. Getting their angles and seeing what the problem is, and then going and then trying to see how we can address those issues. Everybody's got problems, right? But nobody really has solutions, and that's what I'm looking for. The community is at large, like you said, it's not one district. You've got to encompass the entire, all the areas. So that's very overwhelming. I mean, it's very overwhelming for, I'm very efficient. I consider myself very efficient, and I do it. I run a lot of companies at once. I use technology to my advantage, and this is a lot of information coming in at once. I think I'm doing a great job at managing it, but I want help with the community. I mean, again, if you got a problem, let's come up with a solution, and that's why I'm meeting with these people, because your idea might not be perfect, and my idea might not be perfect, but you combine the two ideas together, they turn out to a very good solution, and you just got to be able to morph that into a solution that works for everybody. So, I'm open. I'm signing up for any of their organizations they have, neighborhood committees and stuff like that, to come visit, and they've invited me, and I'm trying to attend all of them as much as possible. There's
What are like three major concerns for the South Side?
Development. There's no development in residential, and it's not an issue of we've got to get the real issue, I guess, is to get people to invest in it. I think their big concern is safety. That's the biggest thing I get all the time is safety, safety, safety. We've got this stuff, and so you meet with police and you figure out how we can make this. And there's there's two sides to the story. So you've got to get somebody that wants to commit to fixing that safety problem rather than just making a call and then wanting to be not heard anymore. And I get the safety issue from them not wanting to do that, but we've got to get people that want to really fix the problems. So safety, affordable living, we've got to get, and it doesn't have to be cheap. It can be very affordable. I mean, affordable is a loose term a lot of people use, but I think that they need that, and I think education, is important for down in that area. And it's not just a school thing. It's I'm a big life skills guy. I know I'm not running for school board, but we've got to figure out a way that we can work with the city and the school board to build in some sort of life skills development for the kids, because at high school, in my opinion, it's too late to try to help a student or develop. You learn stuff. You learn how to push in the chairs and open the doors for people and say thank you and you're welcome and look people in their eyes, their face when you're talking to them, and that's also technology's fault too. I mean, no matter where in the city you're at, technology still affects us all. I mean, we've all got the neck down syndrome, and we've started to lose that personal connection. And in my mind, we just lose. We do long math or the square root of something or pi, and where else do we ever really use that again in our life? But we don't really have, the proper things. In my mind, is how to communicate with other humans, and I think that will go a really, really long way in the end result of what they're trying to achieve, which is growth and jobs and education and life and safety as well. So
and both the unemployment and underemployment are serious concerns there, as well as educational attainment. The city really has not gotten its arms around those larger problems or really come forward with any city-specific, here's what City Hall, city government is going to do to address these things. Part of that, I think we would argue, has been that it's been difficult to get buy-in from parts of the community that aren't visibly immediately affected. And I say it that way because all of the city is affected by these problems in South Peoria, the East Bluff, the North Valley. How do you make people in those less visibly affected parts of the city care about finding those solutions?
Well, that's what I'm working on. I mean, it's a struggle. You find the select leaders of the community, and you got to build off of that. I mean, I feel that's the only way you're going to achieve it. I don't think that I think there's too much of a breakdown between the city and those communities, because I don't know if they don't trust or they don't believe in that particular method. So I think we need someone in the communities that want to get together and start to assemble. And it's going to start small, and it's going to build out, and that's what it has to take. But
well, the city spent a couple $100,000 on a study and did large-scale and small-scale community meetings trying to identify not-for-profit leaders, trying to identify social service agency leaders, trying to identify rank-and-file members of the community who could come together, and they did. They had people step forward and put their name down for smaller group committees. Still no action. What else should City Hall be doing to tackle this gigantic problem that affects all of us in terms of use of resources, police department, fire department, use of tax dollars, spreading out of the burden because of a disinvestment and lack of property tax income coming from those areas of the community?
Accountability, I think, is huge. So I've got to look and see exactly who, if there's a follow-up or is it a push, or, you said someone does put their name out that they're willing to help. So where did that disconnect happen? I mean, why did that, if someone was truly putting their name out there, why wasn't there follow-up, or why wasn't there a push to make more progress with it? And unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that. So that's what's something I'll have to dig into and figure out why and what else we can do about it.
Did you attend any of those community meetings?
I did not. No.
Okay. I want to go back to economic development for a minute, because you talked about really needing to reach out to some of these newer, more emerging industries that we might have a connection to. A lot of City Hall economic development has involved dangling incentives in front of people, either because they ask for them or we think that's what's going to help bring people here. What should we be doing differently in terms of those incentives?
Well, incentives, I think, is a two-way street. I mean, if someone's wanting an incentive, they've got to have some skin in the game too. I mean, there's got to be back to accountability. If they're going to want to, if they want something, they're going to have to make some sort of commitment or something in return. I'm not 100% against it. I mean, I don't think we should be giving away the boat, but we also, there needs to be accountability. I mean, there's multiple deals that, are just, why did we do them? Why are we doing them? Why would we even entertain them? Or, what other ways could we have gone about doing it? And, I think you're going to have some of it, but there's going to have to be accountability from both parties, and it's got to be fair. I mean, and it's got to be when we look at things like that, it's got to be something that is not just a one-partied, one-biased point of view or decision. It needs to be someone that's outside of who personally benefits from it or benefits in general from it. And I think that's one thing that we can incorporate. There's so many people I've talked to that have volunteered to offer solutions and ideas to help figure out, if we're looking at a particular industry, it doesn't need to be something that, we are paying for as a city or a taxpayer, that the person wanting to do the business should be responsible for paying for, but it's also not something that they should be deciding who gets to help them with their evaluation of the product or the industry move. And that's big because, there's too much one-sided stuff, I feel like, in a lot of any business dealings. And I think if you bring, especially when you're dealing with taxpayer money, there needs to be someone that's outside of the deal that is helping make the decisions, rather than people who have never worked in that particular industry or that sector of the world. I mean, that's what do I know about medical? I mean, I wouldn't go give my advice on someone who was, going to have surgery. So why would someone who doesn't know anything about, machining be involved in that decision?
City Council just completed a budget for this year and made a lot of cuts on staff. Excuse me, increased or created a couple of fees that for stormwater and sewer and for the help with the pension. What did they do right? What did they do wrong?
Well, I mean, they've got to come up with a budget, right? I mean, to them, that's their only resource. From my knowledge, is that it should have been looked at a long time ago, way before then. I mean, we've known this problem is coming. I mean, how do you not know it's coming, right? But so what's the disconnect? And that's what I'm trying to figure out, is where am I missing something completely, or is it just a lack of ideas or concepts or development in other areas, rather than just creating taxes? Because we can't create fees or taxes because it's just going to push everyone out, and it's not going to help us. So, I've got to really, I want to go in and I really want to analyze every single line item in the budget. I want to make sure that we have stuff that is relevant to society today, that we're paying for stuff that's being used. If there's a certain sector that we have no reason spending money on, why are we spending money on it? And I think that if we rank these in priority of what the city actually needs to run its services, and to make sure that public safety is top tier, and that everything is ranked down to, something that costs us $100,000, that there's no reason, we haven't used this since the 80s. Why are we still putting money into this, and why are we still letting it, cost us money?
Did you do the online budget challenge that the city offered on its website 2 years ago?
I did not, no.
Okay.
No.
And that allows you to go through line by line on the expenditures and the revenue that's available, and sort of craft your own budget.
Okay.
Based on
I was aware of it. I just didn't take place in it. So. Yeah.
Okay. On the public safety end of things, we're coming off a year that was a record-tying year for the number of homicides in the city. What should the city be doing differently in terms of its policing strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's community outreach. I think it's cooperation. I think it's I think the police department has got some things coming down the line of really starting to work with, try to work more at the street level. I think it's a disconnect of I mean, the police get beat up a lot. All the news stories, everything that happens. We've got to bridge that gap between the public and the police department, and I think the police department knows that. I think they're going to want to work on that, because I think people are intimidated by them. But I think that with the right training, I think they can learn how to be a little bit more on the streets, if you will, and I think that helps relations. So, I mean, some of the stuff is gang related, drug related. can you stop all of that? I don't think you can always. I don't think you'll be able to stop all that completely. But I think if you have a relationship between the police and the citizens that they feel they have a relationship with, I think it'll reduce over time. And I think
does the city need to expand the resident officer program?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is a very beneficial product. I mean, I think having someone living in the community is huge. I mean, but it's got to be done right. I mean, it's got to continue to grow and be done proper and make sure that there is real.
Should the city consider a requirement to impose in its contracts for public safety that fire and police officers live in the city? A residential requirement for them?
I think it's important. I think that they should. I mean, you don't realize, again, back to the sales tax, a lot of cities run on sales tax, and for years. I mean, we don't realize how much we lose from people spending in other communities. And, those communities obviously benefit from it, but you live in the city, you should vote, you should live in the city that you work. I mean, because then you get to vote and you get to voice your opinion and make sure that, your voice is heard. And unfortunately, that went away years ago, and I think that it's pretty beneficial. I mean,
is that something you would be willing to incentivize? Because the likelihood of just getting it into a contract without giving something else away as part of that, it seems low.
I mean, I think yeah, you're right. I mean, it is low. Everybody has to want to improve the community. I mean, people don't realize how, I get a lot of feedback of why I'm talking to people outside of Peoria as well for support. But Peoria is the main ship. If this boat sinks, they all will go down. I mean, the whole community needs Peoria to thrive, and everybody's got to start wanting to build this community back up, because otherwise we're all going to be in a world of hurt. And that's why one of the reasons I'm running, I mean, it's the most important reason I'm running, is because I want to try to fix the problem and help the city council and everybody else out with new ideas and bring them new concepts and show them that there's other ways outside the box. And that's, what are you going to give up? I mean, eventually it's just going to run out, right? I mean, that's why I don't understand why a lot of people don't get that, is that you can only get water from the well for so long before it's dry. I mean, so we have to figure out a solution. I think that's a very easy solution, to want to live in the community that you work in. And, I'm sure a lot of people don't see it that way, but that's how I see it.
City Council has one employee, and that's city manager. Mm-hmm. What kind of job is Patrick Kaergard doing?
I think he's, with the resources and stuff he has, I mean, he's doing all he can do. I don't, it's everybody's fault, in my opinion. I mean, we need new ideas, we need to work together, and we need to figure out solutions to the problem, and rather than just taxing, and that's all you can do.
I want to ask you a couple of philosophical questions as we wrap up here. You, as a council member, if you're lucky enough to be elected, are going to be privy to some information that either the general public will not have in certain private instances, or more information than many members of the general public will choose to look at. You're also going to get a lot of feedback from members of the public on what they think you ought to be doing or not doing on certain issues. When you get that feedback and it's 100% opposed, or a majority opposed to what you think with the information you have is the right choice, who do you listen to? Do you listen to what you believe is right, or to the majority of your voters who are telling you to do something different?
I mean, if the majority of the voters are telling me that that's what they want, then that's what I'm there for. I mean, they're voting. If I am lucky enough to be on the council, I'm representing the citizens. I mean, and that's where communication and transparency I really want to focus on, and I think we have so many social media tools to do that now, that if that's what they want, I'll give it to them. I mean, I'll never vote against my constituents. If that's what they want, I'll make sure that that's what they get.
Okay, and I do want to ask you too. Part of the most important job of a city council member when you have these ideas or proposals or changes is being able to count to 6. Get 5 other people to vote with you on them. How do you persuade a council that may not agree with you and persuade people on that council who have been there for decades in some cases to go along with what you want? How do you persuade someone to do something?
The art of communication. I mean, it's just as important at marriage or a partnership or whatever you have. You've got to be able to talk it out, and you've got to be able to show them points. I like facts. Some of these debates, you're asked these questions off the cuff, and unfortunately, I've been on city council, so I don't know directly the answer to all of them. And I like to be able to read and correctly analyze the answer. And it's one of these things. I want to prove to them facts and show them exactly how it is. And I think if you do that with an artistic way of explaining it and understand what it's going to affect when they make these decisions, business-wise or community-wise, I think that we'll be able to reach the goals together and fix the town. So,
all right, excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming in. The city primary is on February 26th. The field will then be narrowed down to 10 people for the general election on April 2nd. Branden Martin, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Yep, thank you for the time.